Hi, everyone. Beautiful beings from all over the world. Here we are, last 3 days with day 19 of 21 days of fear, where we have gone live for the last 18 days talking about fear, talking about all the ways that fear shows up in our life that we might not even recognize our fears, to sabotage and to challenge and to constrict and to do all the things that hold us back from thriving. So today, day 18, or excuse me, 19, we are coming towards the end of our journey, and we are going to talk about the core human fear. And this is the fear of dying. That being said, it is not what you think immediately, because I know some of you are going to watch this and say, oh, I'm not afraid of dying. Shut that off. And at one point in my journey, I would have said the same thing until I got real with the truth and started to see the ego and its delusions. So a few things are happening when we are engaging the core fear of the human, which is the fear of dying. When we are physiologically engaging this fear through our survival mechanisms, we have survival mechanisms in our brain, programs that are run specifically to ensure we stay alive, right? So we have the physiological level of this. Then we go into the mental level of this. The mental level of this is where the majority of people get really caught up, because what we're really looking at when we're looking at the fear of dying is we are looking at a dissonance with our truth, with our spiritual essence, with the highest capacity that we can attain. Because morality is a delusion of the ego, where the only part of us that can actually die is the ego. So even the body's physical death, as we have known it, is really intertwined with the ego. So we actually start to get deeper into some of the denser programs that are keeping humanity in a state of survival. And survival is where we're living through fear. Survival is where we are separated. Survival is where, as I've been saying, the racism, the bigotry, the sexism, the separation, all the things that are incredibly challenging throughout our species to interconnect with each other are all through the survival paradigm that is run by fear. Our true nature is as immortal beings, right? We do not die. We are eternal, everlasting, omnipresent, all over, everywhere. So the idea of dying comes in this mutant world through the virus of the ego. Now, if we really, truly, actually understand even the science of our biology, every 7 years, we have a brand new body, cellularly speaking, that is formed. So every 7 years, our body, if we have a body that is healthy and in harmony, every 7 years, the cells die and brand new cells are born. So every 7 years, our body gets reborn so long as we have healthy cells. What that means is that our bodies in nature, when we are not conditioned by the fear-oriented world, have the potential for immortality built into their cells. So the whole idea of this core fear being the fear of dying is actually a fear itself, right? It is the last thread that's holding us into the fear paradigm. Now, transmuting this fear of dying, is far more than transmuting the physiological, or at least the way we perceive it to be physiological, fear of dying, where we're like, okay, maybe we are brushed with the face of death and we get in a car accident or we have a near-death experience, and we have this awareness that comes through that. And we no longer really are afraid of our body transitioning, because in those moments, for those of you who have also had near-death experiences, you touch your divinity, you experience spirit, you know that there's something more than just this body. That being said, to just process that layer of this fear is not enough, because the core of this fear is held into this mutant matrix that is governed by this virus that we call the ego. That is a self that believes it is the person that is having this individual experience that is separate from the whole, that is all the things that it believes itself to be. That aspect of the self is the only thing that can die. And it is absolutely terrified of dying. Everything has a self-preservation mechanism, including the ego. So when we start to actually awaken and shed the layers of ourself and who we've believed ourselves to be, the self-preservation mechanism of the ego comes online big time. We have, and I'm sure you've seen it, people talking about ego deaths, right? Now, even that, talking about that, is the ego essentially glorifying itself for going through an ego death, which is the way that the spiritual ego masks itself and deludes us into believing that we are far more advanced than we actually are. The self-preservation mechanism of the ego is advanced. This virus has been plaguing this species for thousands and thousands of years. It is epigenetically hardwired into our genome. So it has found advanced mechanisms for survival, just as our body has, just as this planet and the species that are within it do as well when their survival is threatened. So the ego, as we start to awaken and start to become aware of our spiritual essence, of there being something more than this life, the ego picks up a spiritual lens, and it will actually start to say and act as though it is dissolving, yet it is doing so from a sense of self, believing that it is a self that can dissolve, that can go through this ego death, is the ego. Wearing a mask to trick the mind into believing that it's far more advanced than it actually is. Because the ego is afraid of dying, because it feeds on fear. Fear is what feeds the ego. It lives on the energy of fear. Whereas love, the essence of love, is what feeds our soul and our consciousness. So because it feeds on fear, it utilizes fear at all stages of the game, even when it starts to wear a spiritualized mask and believe itself to be a self having an ego death, which is ultimately the ego saying, yeah, I'm dying over here, I'm dying, don't pay attention to me, it's gone. Yet the mind complex is still operating fully from the ego, fully operating within these spaces of fear. And you can know that through having still periods of anxiety, periods of chronic pain, periods of depression, cyclical natures of fears coming back into your life and patterns coming back into your life that shows that this program has not been completely eradicated. Because to completely eradicate the fear of death is not just overcoming the physiological fears of death. And I would abhor, when I've talked to people about this and they've said, I'm not afraid of dying. I said, do you have anxiety? Do you have stress? Do you worry? Do you have, does your heart start to race and you get a little nervous when something happens, when you have to go maybe talk in front of people, or when you have to, make a call to someone that you're going to break up with and you're not really interested in being in the relationship anymore, or all the things, right? All the things that start to bring up that little jittery stress, anxiety, worry, insecurity, worthiness. All of that is fear. And all fears are feeding the great fear of the ego, and it's fear of dying. So all fear circles back to the fear of dying. So we might have a belief that we are no longer plagued by the fear of death. And our reality, the symptomology of these things continuing to surface up, should be the messengers that say, hey, you're actually not over that fear of death yet. Otherwise, all this stress and panic and anxiety and pain and suffering and stories of lack and limitation, none of that would be happening if that was actually true. It's very humbling when we start to really see the layers that the ego wraps around us. And all symptoms, whether they are felt in our body or symptoms in our reality around us, what is manifesting directly in front of us. Remember the video? Maybe it was day 11 or 12. What is in front of you reveals what is hidden from you. So what is manifesting in your reality is a symptom, a messenger that is sharing with you something that you are unable to see. And all stress, all anxiety, all worry, all insecurity and hesitation and doubt and all these things are fear. Remember, fear is anything that takes us out of truth with a capital T, and truth with a capital T is the pure love of our soul. Pure, right? If you're hearing that and are like, what is she talking about? I'm talking about messages that came through in the previous 18 days of this 21 days of fear. They're all building us up and going deeper and deeper and deeper, right? If I were to talk about today's topic on day one, y'all wouldn't have come back because the ego would have been like, no, don't listen to this crazy woman. You're not afraid of dying. No, you have no fear of death. You're over that. And then you just continue moving forward, having stress and sleepless nights and all the things that would be very clear messages from your body saying, hey, there's something deeper happening here that is to be looked at in order for you to truly heal. And healing is the path of unwinding. It's like we are these miraculous, massive beings. And we are so much more than this physical body, and it has been bound. It's like taking this big, huge, beautiful, expansive energy being and binding it in rope and shrinking it down to its lower dimensions and saying, this is all you are. All you are is this physical being. And it's bound the truth all around you that we are so much more than that. So our healing is an unbinding of everything that is fear, that takes us away from truth. And as we go deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of really looking at being responsible and accountable for who we are being in this world and what energy we are experiencing life through, what we are feeding into the collective story, because remember, whatever is happening in our reality, we are feeding into the collective storyline, whether that story is a story of suffering or that story is a story of peace. We are the ones that choose through our journey of what is happening within ourselves. So as we go deeper, we get into this core fear, which is actually not a fear of our physical body dying at all. It is the ego and the sense of self, the sense of an identity as an individual person here that means something, that on the path of higher spiritual initiation, of, let's say, becoming a Buddha, reaching the Buddhic plane, evolving through anchoring your causal plane, your soul into the vehicle, collapsing all the timelines into this single point, and then going forth into the Buddhic planes, into the higher planes, returning to the monadic plane, right? That journey, the fundamental piece of that is a dissolution of the self and a dissolving of all parts of ourselves that think we are separate. And in this fear paradigm that we are experiencing life through, fear is held and locked in place through our illusion that we are separate beings, which means that the part of us that keeps us separate, which is the ego, is the very thing that which is fear itself. I hope that's making sense. It sounded like a riddle coming out. That being said, I feel like it was clear. It's like the riddle of weaving the language to describe the ineffable, right? Ultimately, there comes many, 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 many points on the path of quote-unquote ego dying. And these are as several layers of who we have thought we were, everything that we have identified with, including identifying as a human being, having a human experience. These are the final fabric layers that get dissolved as we release the core fear of dying. And as we dissolve all of that, our reality no longer manifests through any symptomology of fear. So if there are symptomologies of fear, and those are, if you missed the last videos, stress, anxiety, worry, insecurity, procrastination, not willing to put yourself out there, fear of success, fear of failure, feeling uncomfortable reaching out to people and connecting with them, having chronic pain in your body, dis-ease in the body, dis-ease in the mind, right? Dis-ease in the emotion. It's all encompassing. All of the suffering that is felt is all fear. And the list of the 10 things that I just shared are 10 of a lot of experiences that are all symptoms, and the symptom is the messenger revealing what is hidden within ourselves. And what it's revealing is that there is fear still plugged into our body, plugged into our spirit body, plugged into our mental and our emotional bodies. And it is like, okay, we'll just use this example of the computer, right? If you get a virus on your computer, right? You got a malware, or whatever it's called, malware, I think it is. Anyways, if you get a virus on your computer, right? And your computer is going to still work. There might be like annoying pop-ups that happen. It might have some glitches that keep going. And you could live with that virus on your computer until your computer essentially dies. That's what humanity has been doing, living with this virus of the ego until the body eventually dies. And then we go forth and we recreate and bring another ego back and just keep moving forward until we eventually transcend that completely, which is transcending fear completely, which means none of those symptoms will ever exist again in your reality once that core fear is actually dissolved. And I am guided to go into such depth of that because so many people think that they are beyond this fear of dying because they hear it and they are only looking at it from the surface level. unaware of the symptoms in their experience. And those symptoms might be the happenings at your job, the happenings in your relationship, the happenings, in your environment, in the world around you. Those are all symptoms revealing what's hidden inside of you, right? So this whole journey, and that's what the next 2 days, the last 2 days of these 21 days are really about, is why have we focused for 21 days, 18 of them now done, on fear, right? Because our path right now is about becoming radically responsible for the energy that we are embodying and that we are feeding into the collective, because each and every single one of us is a part of the whole and is feeding that whole through our experience. So if we are in fact going to birth a world of peace and love, that happens through us individually, internally, processing and integrating any single part of us that still resonates with fear. And what I've come to learn in the last 6 years of going all in on Love's Mission and really talking about fear, talking about love, talking about these energies, is that the vast majority of people don't recognize all the ways that fear is actually living through their lives, because they're just looking at the symptoms and they're not looking at the deeper cause, that which is fear. So if you are just tuning in today, please go back and watch the last 18 days. There is access to them on my Instagram TV for those of you who are Instagram right now, on my Facebook page for those of you who are watching from Facebook, and for those of you who like to watch videos at high speed, which I'm one of those people, I'm uploading them all to my YouTube page, which is at Rainbow Jones, and you can go check those out in the Fearlessly Expressed playlist. If you like to go 1x5, whatever it is, times the speed to watch things faster in a replay, like, go watch them. There's so much value. They're so important. This conversation is like the most important conversation that we as humans can be having right now, because it is what's keeping us separate and diseased and in war with ourselves and with each other. So thank you, beautiful beings, for being here with me. If you've resonated with these videos, please tag a friend, please share them, please host watch parties with them. Get the word out. It's time to really have these deeper conversations, to really understand the ways that fear are showing up in our lives, so that we can be responsible and so that we can actually go in and heal the cause, so that we eradicate the symptoms. We have 2 more days. I'll be coming to you live the next 2 days with the last 2 days of this journey. I just said 2 days so many times. Anyways, I hope that you have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are at in the world. Sending you so much